sports podcast with the youngest, most daring, intrepid, gutsy, fearless host on the planet. Get ready for Jake's Takes. Here's Jake.
Welcome back. I am Jake, and this is Jake's Takes, where I get your favorite athletes and stars to open up and speak what's really on their minds. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because you won't believe the guests I have lined up. Get ready, sports fans, because Jake's Takes is the show you've been waiting for. Today's guest was drafted by the Buffalo Sabres, 14th overall in the 1990 NHL Draft. He had a marvelous career playing 19 seasons in the NHL for the Sabres, the Canucks, the Maple Leafs, and several others. And in 2006, he won the Stanley Cup with the Anaheim Ducks. On April 8th of 2009, he reached a great milestone, playing in his 1,000th career NHL game. And of course, he scored one of the most iconic goals in playoff history. For the past few years, he has served as an analyst with the Vegas Golden Knights. It is my honor to welcome to Jake's Takes, Mayday, 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 Brad May. What's up, Brad? How you doing?
I love you, Jake. I love the energy, and I'm doing fantastic. I just hope everybody listening's doing good in this pandemic. It's been brutal for all of us.
You know, how's a good Canadian boy like you enjoying the California weather?
That's a great question, Jake. You know what? Because I live down here and I played for the Anaheim Ducks, I spend my winter in Southern California, in Laguna Beach. I was stuck in my cottage for north of Toronto for basically mid-April all the way to November. So we actually came down here for the winter. I'll be back in the spring, and just loving life, trying to stay safe, Jake, wearing our mask, distancing, doing all the things that we're supposed to do.
Good for you. So Brad, you've always been a real character guy, and you've never been shy. So I'm going to try and ask you some tough questions today. Maybe push the envelope as much as I can. That okay?
I love it. I want you to, you know what? Bring the heat, Jake. Bring the heat.
Let's go. I promised we'll get to the feel-good stories everyone asks you about, like the Mayday goal and your Stanley Cup. But I want to start with your style of play. I might have counted wrong, but you were in more than 150 fights in the NHL. Sports isn't just a game, but sports also teaches us valuable lessons for life. When I watch your game, is it fair to say that one of the lessons you're teaching is to solve problems by fighting and beating people up? Is that what you want young kids watching your career to learn?
A great question, Jake. I'll tell you what. All these young kids that are listening to this conversation, they wouldn't have wanted to play against me. And I'm proud of that.
I know I don't.
And I'm proud of that. No, you know what? The amazing thing about hockey, it's evolved like everything is. Technology's evolved. Just the way we live, the way we consume, the way we buy our products. We don't go into the malls as much. We order things online and we get delivered in boxes. So obviously back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, fighting was it had much greater appeal, number one, but also it was actually a strategy to intimidate and to lean on your opposition and take their will away, and a will away to battle, compete, and try to win. So for me, fighting was certainly an outlet for that, along with hitting and just the physical confrontations you'd find yourself in corners. But it's the threat of the fight, Jake, that was more important than the fight itself. And if I can elaborate on that, the idea that somebody would come out I don't know, let's just imagine I'm playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Matt Sundin, who we all loved, is on the ice, and one of the players tries to take Matt's, will away. He rides him hard into the corner. Well, you know what? For the Toronto Maple Leafs to win tonight, we got to keep Matt safe. So I'd jump over the boards, or I'd be on the ice, and I was threatening the guy that was trying to be physical and maybe trying to get into Matt's kitchen. And you know what? You talk to him a little bit, kind of just tell him that, hey, listen, we're here. And of course, at the time when I'm talking about Matt Sundin, they had Ty Domi, they had Darcy Tucker, Shane Corson, Gary Roberts, and other players that could do all this. And you know what? All of a sudden, Matt Sundin goes on to be a Hall of Fame player, and your team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, win more games than maybe, I don't want to say should have, but could have, because of the intimidation factor. So it takes all parts. To finish my comment about fighting and why I love it, and quite honestly, it's the only thing I miss about not playing, Jake, is teeing off on somebody's nose. I loved it. It was a great feeling on my right fist.
Yeah, protecting your players is so important. Matters
for sure, buddy. And but you know what? The greatest bowl of soup you've ever eaten, Jake?
What?
It has many ingredients, right? If you have too much salt, the soup stinks because it's too salty, and if it doesn't have enough salt, then obviously it's too bland. And I think that's the same thing when you're trying to build a hockey team or any type of team, is you have to have different characters that fill different roles, and you know what? Hopefully together you can become close enough and good enough to try to win.
I get that, and you did a great job intimidating your opponents. So here's another toughie to discuss. As a member of the Coyotes, you were given a 20-game suspension, tied for fourth longest in NHL history at the time, for a slash to the head of Columbus forward Steve Hines. Now, I must make it very clear that although you had played 9 aggressive seasons in the NHL, up until this point, you have never received a suspension, which says a lot about your character. Can you describe to me the play with Steve Hines, how it unfolded, and how you found out about the suspension?
Great, good question. You know what? These are things that, sometimes it's difficult to talk about. And at the time when I did get suspended and I was going through that, I felt terrible, number one. Again, I was just talking about fighting, Jake, and just the way the game was played. I feel really, I'm very proud that I can probably, I would say 99.9% of guys that I played against would actually, I believe they would think of me as a hardworking, honest player. And, when saying that doesn't mean that you didn't, inflict pain or some fear into certain players. But so anyways, I'm in Columbus. I had just signed with the Phoenix Coyotes, and I want to say it was about 14 or 15 games into the season. I slashed Steve Hines. I was back checking, and honestly, it was a brain cramp. I didn't mean to do what I did, and I kind of panicked, and I swung my stick, and I hit Steve Hines right in the face. And but again, I didn't mean to do it. It was like just a stupid play, and there was no intent to it whatsoever. And anyways, right after I got I got kicked out of the game, like immediately, I went right down the hallway 20 seconds after I did this, right into the Columbus Blue Jackets locker room, to check on Steve, because he left the ice as well. I had cut him. I didn't know how badly I had hurt him. Thank goodness it was only a few stitches for Steve, and I went right into their medical room. And of course, as a visiting player, you're not allowed to go in the locker room of the other team. So if I was going to get suspended, I want to say some of the games were probably because I went into that locker room, but that's actually not true. But anyway, I went in and I checked on Steve. We played against each other many times, and he was fine and accepted my apology and absolutely understood I didn't mean to do it. And anyways, he went on to score a goal on the power play. He got stitched up and he got back on the ice on the 5-minute major, and he ended up scoring a goal. But 2 days later, I was in Toronto at a hearing with Colin Campbell and Mike Murphy and the rest of the hockey ops department and player safety. And they were asking me questions. And interestingly enough, I got 20 games. That's what they ended up ruling on. So I literally lost a quarter of my season, or I did it to myself. When I say lost, maybe I inflicted that on myself. But I wasn't able to play the next 20 games. But they asked me 4 questions, or they said that there was four questions they asked in determining the length of a suspension, Jake, and they entailed time of game, history with the player or the players that were involved, the intent or lack of intent on the actual play, and then the history of my career. So you spoke of it. I already played 9 years, many fights, but honorable, and really not in any trouble with the National Hockey League, and an honest player. And every other category didn't apply to me. I mean, the time of the game, I believe the game was 1-1. There was no history with Steve Hines. My history personally was, pretty clean and honorable. And I still got 20 games. And that's, it just goes to show you that, listen, sometimes you do things and you have to be accountable for your actions. I took it on the chin. I got 20 game suspension, but I think the NHL overshot the number on that one. But then I ask you one question, Jake. What happens if I hit Steve Hines in the eye and he couldn't see again? Or what happens if I hit him in the ear and he couldn't hear again? Do I deserve 20 games? Listen, we all as players have to be accountable for our actions. Sometimes you make a mistake, and that's what it was for me. It was a mistake, and I lived and I learned, and I'm not ashamed of that play because it was a mistake. There are a few other things that I think where I actually thought and planned to do things that maybe, I don't want to say ashamed, but that maybe I went a little too far at times. But for this Steve Hines incident, 20 games, not playing wasn't fun, although I was playing for the Phoenix Coyotes living in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I got to play golf pretty much every day, so that was pretty good.
Man, thanks for talking about that. Not easy, but you did a great job. How can I talk to Brad May and not discuss the epic Mayday goal? Game 4 in the 1993 playoffs against the Boston Bruins. You were tied at 5 and went to overtime. You took a pass from a falling Pat LaFontaine. Deke passed Ray Bourque, went on goal and scored. The goal secured Buffalo's upset of the second best team in the NHL. And the Buffalo announcer erupted. Take us back to the play and how it unfolded in your eyes.
May and over the line. Here's May going in on goal. He shoots. He scores!
Wow, you know what? I've seen it so many times. I don't know if I remember the play, Jake, or I just remember the video and of course Rick Jenrat's call. But yeah, it was. You know what? For me, it's the greatest moment I had as an individual in the NHL. For myself, scoring in overtime, Stanley Cup playoffs, beating the Boston Bruins. Unreal. It was so long ago, though, Jake. 1993. I was a young guy then, and it was a dream come true. There's no doubt about it. Patty LaFontaine, he was my roommate, one of my best friends. He was a mentor, is a mentor. He currently, even still, he's one of my favorite people I've ever met in my life. But Patty ended up hitting me with that pass, and all series long. This was only game 4. We swept the Bruins, but all series long. In the year prior, we lost to the Boston Bruins in Game 7 in the first round of the playoffs. So we had 7 playoff games against them the year before. And my role that I believed it was anyways, but I was tasked. I played with Pat LaFontaine and Alexander McGillney, and they were going to match up against the best defensive players for the Bruins, right? Because back then you had a lot of matchups, and you're trying to stop the best twosome in the NHL. I'm talking offensively that year in 1992-93 was Pat LaFontaine and Alexander McGillney. Mario Lemieux ended up winning the scoring race, but Patty and Alex had an unbelievable offensive year, and Ray Bourque is on the ice every time that Pat and Alex are on the ice. Well, I'm a left winger, and Ray Bourque's on the ice, and every time Ray was supposed to touch the puck, obviously we all know who Ray Bourque is, one of the best, if not, in the conversation of the best defensemen that ever played in the NHL. I was tasked that every time he touched the puck to run him through the boards or hit him or stop his momentum, tire him out. Where every hit would pay dividends down the line in game 5, 6, and 7. And I think afterwards, talking to Ray a few months after this game, and I scored, he actually thought that I was going to chip the puck into the corner and try to hit him again. And that's exactly, if you ask Ray Bourque, that's exactly what he would tell you. And he thought I was so one-dimensional. Of course, there was respect back and forth, but I think at that moment, he didn't know or certainly believe that I would have tried to make a move like that I would have chipped it in the corner, because that's what would happen or had happened over the last few games. And it was just a moment in time. I got the puck through his feet, and then I was able to freeze the goaltender Andy Mogan score, and I made a sprint down to the other end of the ice and celebrated. And the greatest part about it was the Buffalo Sabres hadn't been out of the first round of the playoffs in 10 years, and that was a big moment for Buffalo. But crazy enough, about 2 weeks later, we ended up losing and got swept by the Montreal Canadiens, the eventual Stanley Cup champions. Each game was 4-3. The goaltenders, imagine this one: Patrick Roy in Montreal, Grant Fuhr, our goalie in Buffalo, and then Dominic Hasek is on the bench in Buffalo. Wow. Dominic Hasek turns out to be one of the best goalies, if not the best ever. They're surpassing Patrick Roy as a goaltender. Just a great series. But my point of bringing that up was we got so excited, we got so high. Your dreams are closer. The Stanley Cup is now a month and a half away if you stay in the tournament. And 10 days, 12 days later, we're out of the playoffs. So the lesson I learned from that one was you got to keep the highs a little lower, and the lows you got to somehow find a way to keep an even keel, because it's a roller coaster. And although we had a great night and won in overtime and everything was fun, we didn't follow through with our objective, and that was to go further and deeper in the playoffs.
Incredible moment for sure. And Buffalo hasn't made it out of the first round since. Okay, Brad, you know what time it is on Jake's Takes? It's game time! I'll ask you a bunch of short questions, and you answer them as quick as you can. Deal?
Okay, and not a lot of words, right?
Right,
Quick
yeah.
answers.
Let the games
I love talking.
Let the games begin.
Okay, buddy.
Your favorite coach you've ever played for?
Ted Nolan.
Hardest opponent you fought in the NHL?
I would say the late Derek Bugard.
Does Brian Burke know how to smile?
Does Brian Burke know how to smile?
Yep.
When we won the Stanley Cup, it was the best smile I've ever seen.
If you had to choose between toothpaste or deodorant, which would it be?
Buddy, it's got to be toothpaste. Are you kidding me? Nobody likes bad breath.
Who was the funniest teammate you ever had?
Mark Bergevin, the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. Literally, the funniest man in hockey.
When was the last time you ever just scream on the top of your lungs?
Right now, Jake.
Who's a better goal scorer, Leon Draisaitl or David Pastrnak?
Oh, that's a great question. You know what? I would say it's got to be Pastrnak, but if you're talking about all-around game and passing ability, the Hart Trophy winner, Draisaitl.
One word that describes Don Cherry.
Iconic.
We have a winner! Brad May! That was truly a spectacular performance. How'd that feel, Brad?
It was good until the end. I was supposed to be quick, but I was trying to find the right word for Don Cherry. And I think iconic is a good one, though.
Yeah, you did great.
Okay, thanks, buddy.
I have 2 more questions for you, then I'll let you go, Brad.
Okay.
On February 27, 2007, you were traded to the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks went on to win the Stanley Cup that year, and you had your name engraved on the cup for the first time. You'd been in the league for 16 years already, so this must have been very special to hoist that cup. Tell me how the trade to the Ducks came about and the experience of winning the cup.
Great. You know what? Great question. Great way to ask it, too. Well, my year started really crazy. Like, I had no reason and no hope of winning the Stanley Cup. I was in training camp with the Colorado Avalanche in 2006. And to start that season, I dislocate my shoulder, my left shoulder. It's actually for the second time, but I've dislocated my shoulders, Jake, in my career. At this time, it was my 4th shoulder surgery, and major shoulder surgery. It's called a Bankart reconstruction, but where I tore the labrum in my shoulder, and when you have the surgery, it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 months to recover, and in some cases longer. And anyways, I dislocated my shoulder, and I haven't even played a game this season, and I'm out for 5 months. Or 4 months, or whatever it was, and I ended up getting back. I played some games for Colorado, or with Colorado, and it was did the most I could to stay in shape and get in shape. But of course, you don't know if anybody really believes in you anymore because I'm getting older and my shoulders are starting to wear out, or certainly that's what everybody else thinks. And the greatest part for me was Brian Burke and his staff. Bob Murray, who's the current GM of Anaheim. I got traded a few years prior from Phoenix to Vancouver at the trade deadline to Brian Burke and Bob Murray and Dave Nonis. And it's basically the same scenario where I had a shoulder surgery from training camp, missed half the season, whatever. And it worked out pretty well. So Berkey actually took a little chance on me, and I got to Anaheim. And 3 months and 1 week later, we won the Stanley Cup. One of the greatest group of players I ever played with. The greatest team for sure, but just an amazing group of guys, and had so much fun. And we were able to hoist, Lord Stanley. Greatest feeling ever as a hockey player, and be able to share it with mom and dad and brother and sister and family and my wife and kids. My children were on the ice with me. My wife was. It was the greatest thing, the best night outside of my wife and I having 2 wonderful children. Truly, it's the best moment of my life, no doubt. Not even close.
So special. What an accomplishment. Last question, Brad. As you mentioned before, the game of hockey has changed dramatically over the last 10 years. I recognize the league wants more scoring, so they have cracked down on lots of penalties. But there isn't nearly enough checking in the game anymore. Every time someone touches a player, there's a whistle. Being that you prided yourself on playing a physical game, what's your take on the state of the game as I describe it?
Well, I can look at it like that. And I always can look at it like back in my day, right, or back in the good old days, and I don't want to look at hockey like that anymore. Listen, the rules are in effect. When you really think about it, I mean, there was always hooking and tripping penalties forever. So it's just it's a little more penal now because the power plays are so much better. The talent in the game really is. I mean, you can either punch a guy in the nose, for all the right reasons, or you can somehow draw a penalty, and then you have Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews on the ice with an advantage, and all of a sudden, what's more intimidating? The power play is more intimidating in many ways, for certainly team success. And I love what the game of hockey's done. It's fast, it's skilled. Obviously, we have the 3-on-3, which is always a fun thing to watch, and everybody's on their feet when they're in the stadiums. Of course, we're watching it on TV now, but no, I love where hockey is, but I do wish that, and I really cherish that physical bonding team, toughness, that you could actually win games. You still had to score one more goal, but that you could win games and certainly gain an advantage by showing up and preparing and actually doing exactly what you wanted to do, and that was to play physical and knock the other team around a little bit and take their will away to win. And there's a question, a great question in hockey, probably in sports, is it will or is it skill that wins games or championships?
It's both.
And it of course, absolutely, of course. Championship teams, the best, most skilled players, have the greatest will. But if you can take the will to play and compete out of a skilled player, I'd take a team of donkeys, and they would beat the skilled team because they're going to work harder and they're going to work together. So it's very interesting. I do love the game, though, where it's at. It's actually a ton of fun to watch. I just wish there was a little bit more I say interference, but I think that when you're a big, strong professional athlete, that physical advantage that the stronger player would have, it's actually been somewhat sidelined with these new rules, where the strong guy that could actually ride out his check into the corner would have won the puck battle, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And now, if you use your strength trying to get to the puck, you're getting a penalty because you're reaching in and you're hooking or holding. So I'm not sure, but I think the NHL's, they're doing a good job. I just don't want to see them change rules every year. That's frustrating.
Brad, I gotta thank you tons for taking your time and joining me on Jake's Takes. I know I had an absolute blast talking to a legend like you, and hope you had a fun time today.
Hey Jake, let me ask you a question. Just finish this one up.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 11.
You're 11, and what's your goals?
Not really sure yet, but I'm trying to figure that out.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Hey, listen, there's no rush, but you've taken it on yourself to actually start this podcast.
Yeah.
And you do such a good job, and you've had some pretty amazing names already on your podcast already. You're only 11, dude.
Yeah, I'm 11.
Like, think about, hey, you have to start the journey, right? So I'm telling you what, all my friends, whoever you want that I know, I will absolutely work together and get them on your show. I think you do a great job. I think you deserve to have us on and ask the questions. And you know what? I really mean that. Some of my best buddies are Hall of Famers. I mean, they're huge names in hockey and the sport and different. And by the way, different sports. I'm gonna tell them about Jake, and hopefully you reach out to me, and we'll get some of these guys on, and you can have a lot of good conversations.
Thank you so much, Brad. You're such an incredible guy. All the best, and talk soon.
Take care, buddy. Good luck in school. Stay safe. Wear a mask.